Blessings, Booktube. It's Tag Tuesday. I think I missed a couple. My illness, but I'm back with a vengeance. I intended to discuss a little bit, the channel over the past year and for the upcoming year. I thought a fun way to do that would be through tags. So this is another mashup tag that I've taken questions from 5 or 6 different old tags that are kicking around Booktube, and chosen the best or most questions that are, to me, most interesting from each of those. So it gives me sort of a best of, if you will. And these are all tags that have something to do with booktubing and booktubers. So the first one, it's about the Booktube Joy and Gratitude tag, which is originally from Book Chat Pat, and I saw it at Literary Love 123. And my first question is from Joy. It says, "Let's be graceful to people who make us happy. They are the charming gardeners who make our souls blossom." This is a quote from Marcel Proust. And the questions I'm answering from that are: name an author who brings me joy, or a book that makes you feel joyful, and discuss something about Booktube that makes you feel joyful. I think really what I most love about Booktube is comments. Well, I love finding videos that offer like deep analysis from watching the tube. But what I love the most in the exchanges would be in the comments where you get actual questions, not just, "Oh, I loved your video, you're the best," but questions and then a back and forth, something like that. Doesn't happen very often, unfortunately, but I'd love to see more of that. But that's what I love the most and would love to have lots of on my channel. So that's Joy. The books I've chosen to highlight are books that I turned to all throughout my early melodramatic years of the late teens into the 20s and early 30s, the playing at adulthood, and the relationship stuff. And yeah, we had a lot of, tears and all that good stuff. What I would turn to would be the short prose of Woody Allen. I also love his films, but his short prose, which isn't that read, unfortunately, is amazing. He basically had a license to print stories in the New Yorker. So most of these have appeared in the New Yorker. He had 3, he's got a couple more collections since, that came decades later. But he's got his 3 main collections from sort of back in the heyday, which are Getting Even, Without Feathers, and Side Effects. Just to give you a little idea, here I pulled up the table of contents from Getting Even. I think I can still remember some of these. The Metterling list, he does like a Freudian analysis or philosophical, like sort of lit grit analysis of this guy Metterling's laundry lists. Very funny. A look at organized crime. This is sort of like, take the money and run. One of his earliest, mock, what do you call that? Mock documentary style that would come back to with Zelig and stuff. So he talks about mobsters, the Schmid memoirs. Don't remember what that one is about now. My Philosophy is funny. It's very much in the Russian, the idiot, underground man, that kind of style, overblown, hyperbolic, suicidal. Yes, but can the steam engine do this? It's an inventor spoof. I don't remember this one, but I remember one from another book, which is all about the invention of the sandwich, which is quite funny. His very first movie, which nobody sees, is an overdub of a Japanese action film, which he makes about a spy quest for the best egg salad sandwich. Death Knocks, that one might be actually a short play. Can't remember. The Spring, he's got Hasidic Tales, is very funny about, the sort of thing that you get in the in Talmudic and rabbinical commentaries. Uh, and the Gossett Rebellion papers, again, another sort of highfalutin thing. Notes from the Overfed is sort of dreadful, almost mock horror. 20s Memory is hilarious. That one's, you can see kind of come to life in Midnight in Paris, one of his more recent movies, that pulls from a lot of his early literature with the Lost Generation and Hemingway punching everyone in the nose. Viva Vargas, you've got, shades of Bananas there, from his early 70s comedies. You got The Discovery of the Fake Ink Blot. Woody Allen loved magic, used it in several of his plays as well. And I think there's the one with the Sarah Johansson, right? Or what's her name? Johansson. Beautiful Johansson, anyway. She does, and Woody Allen is the magician that makes the journalist disappear. If you've seen that movie, help me with the title of that one. Okay, so let me just give you just a taste for this from the Spring Bulletin story. So here I've got Spring Bulletin. You got the Intro to Psychology, Psychopathology, Philosophy 1, New Mathematics, Economic Theory, all these different courses. And then here I'll read you the one for the History of European Civilization. Ever since the discovery of a fossilized Echippus in the men's washroom at Sedon's cafeteria in East Rutherford, New Jersey, it has been suspected that at one time Europe and America were connected by a strip of land that later sank or became East Rutherford, New Jersey, or both. This throws a new perspective on the formation of European society and enables historians to conjecture about why it sprang up in an area that would have made a much better Asia. Also studying the course is the decision to hold the Renaissance in Italy. So there you go. If you like Woody Allen's humor, or you're on the fence, if you like the early 70s stuff, I think you'll really like those collections. If you've not discovered his comedy, give it a chance. I think you'll really enjoy it. Shades of S.J. Perelman. What other humorists could I cite as a influence for him? All right, we would have better move along here. So the second from the community question here, going back to Book Chat with Pat's tag, Booktube Community Joy and Gratitude, is we cannot live only for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us with our fellow men. So this is from Herman Melville, this quote. So it says, discuss a book with the idea of community is important, or discuss a communal reading experience that you have had. By the way, the last part of that, the gratitude tag, I just thank you, Booktube. So for community in a work of literature, I love the campus novels, the humor of the campus novel. So I think that's a fun community, the campus. But I decided to pick on the monastic communities because there are some fun genre works around there. I recently saw a review, I wish I could remember who to credit them, of the Chronicles of Leibowitz, which I read in my History of the Future class back in college as a corporatist future, certainly, but also micro community, not corporatist, sorry, as a apocalyptic, dystopian future, but also micro community. So the micro communities here, who holds the cultures together, are these little islands of culture in these monasteries after the world is destroyed. And so that's Chronicles of Leibowitz. So check that one out if you want sci-fi. And if you want mysteries, I can highly recommend the Cadfael Mysteries by Ellis Peters. Cadfael is an herbalist, monk, and also a ex crusader. And on a slightly more literary mystery set in a monastery, you've got Umberto Eco's Name of the Rose, one of the great novels. So let's move on to our second tag. This one is by C.G. I found it from C.G. Rated Books. Doesn't cite the original, but he got it from Kevin Tao. And this is a BookTube watching tag. And the question is, how do you balance BookTube watching, reading, and making your own videos? To be honest with you, I'm shocked by how much reading people do of books that they don't like. One of the things I love about reading is it's all quality. I rarely read stuff that I don't like, and not for long. And I'm quite good at picking what I know I will like, and it rarely disappoints me. On the other hand, watching BookTube has been a real mixed bag. I have to be honest, first of all, I pretty much exclusively watch BookTube. I watch a little sports now and again, a little history or archaeology, nature stuff, but for the most part, I really only use my television for watching BookTube. And, I wasn't as savvy in the beginning as I am now about how to sort through BookTube. So I had to go through lots of bad BookTube videos, when I was just seeing the most popular ones and that sort of thing. The things that were being pushed at me or thrown at me randomly. By bad, I mean that not only do they not have interest to me, maybe because of the genre or something like that, but they really don't say anything at all under the guise of, these are new releases and they don't want to spoil anything. They really don't end up saying anything at all about anything. So I would call that pretty bad. So hopefully that's not too controversial. But also I watched, I'm glad because I watched a ton of, sci-fi, fantasy stuff, which I've now, I've set aside because I need to cut down the amount of watching I'm doing, but pretty much going to almost only read the classics ones now going forward. But, they had, I wouldn't have gone to them, but they have some of the best analysis out there. So I find those are of some very high quality. But the problem is, it's such a popular genre that, you'll have 1 in 10 of the creators is giving you real gold, really interesting stuff, and the rest are sort of, all repeating the same overblown hyperbole. And so that's hard to sort through. So finally I have had to sort of, trim my genres that I'm going to watch. And I think I'm going to almost just stop watching literary fiction and even translated fiction videos because it's just so much drama. And, I don't want to read books that make me cry and weep and feel horrible. And, and I don't need to do that to discover other cultures. Every culture has their classic works. And those are generally great, amazing. So I just need to find the people who are reviewing those works, which is not easy. But I have a few dozen people. I probably have been subscribed to as many as 300 at one time when I was supporting all the newbies. And, I would go for anybody who had that I liked. If they had their people that they watched, I would go and subscribe to all of those. But then again, it was, 10% of those, might be interesting to me. Now, those wouldn't be bad booktubers, just, not in my wheelhouse. So the balance is reading is the best. It just delivers the most. I'm excited to find BookTube, so I don't regret having given a lot to it for the past year or so. It was something I needed in my life that I didn't have since college. I almost forgot, going back to talking about a communal reading experience. I went to a PhD program for literature, And I was disappointed at how poor the communal reading experience was. Um, we would get, very forced down our throat uh, analyses from, theologically, not theologically, theoretically motivated professors who want us to take a certain reading of a work, and the students are too sort of overawed by the professors to offer any counter narratives or even ask questions or trouble the waters at all. I was really disappointed. Sorry to say. Anyway, so I like Booktube for being a place where we could have some good discussions of those works of art. However, what I found is you're pretty lucky to just find one interesting presentation of something, and the back and forth just hasn't really happened in my experience of Booktube, but maybe I'm still missing it. We'll see. Which maybe I'll talk about in one of the next tags. The next one is what am I known for? This tag is created by @BigAlDoesBooktube 1097. And I found it at Back Away from the Donkey. Well, I think I'm known for low res, so not very technical, obviously, stuff. And the content what content can you find on my channel? What I'm offering is an original reading of a book. So you should come to me if you are interested in a book. Probably you've read that book. Or if you haven't read it, you would like to have a neat discussion of it, including spoilers, in most cases, which will not harm your reading of that book because that book has already been predetermined by me to be a book of added value, I would say. And most of these are either, Nobel Prize winners or classics, things of that nature, national epics. And I'm going to give you a reading of it. I'm not going to explain the whole thing, right? I'm going to just pick a certain something interesting starting point, some entry point into that work, and I'm going to explore that. You'll see what I mean later on. And so that, I think, is what I can offer in a 15-minute, 5, 10, 7, 8-minute videos, probably about half of mine, or more than that, probably 2/3 of mine. And then the others, really 15, 20, at most 25 minutes, but really those are rare. So in that time allotted, you can't do much, but you should do something. And so I will offer a vision of the work, a question about it, and pull some pieces of the work out, maybe read you some selections, and say this is what I think is going on with this. And so, yeah, that's what I hope to be known for. The next is Booktube embarrassment tag. This is from originated with Andy at Really Random Reads, and I found it at Sandy Says Read. And it says, a book you've been embarrassed or would be embarrassed to be seen reading in public. Well, I'm not really embarrassed by anything. I probably wouldn't read Marquis de Sade on the subway just because I don't want to make other people embarrassed. But there's nothing, those sorts of things don't embarrass me. I was a hippie, I was raised without clothes for half my life, not quite, but you get the point. But I do have a story from Peace Corps. So when I first arrived in my host village, my hut that they were building for me was not finished. So they put me in another hut, which happened, my hut was on the edge of town, edge of the village. But this hut was in the very middle of the village. It was dank, small, tiny hut. The rats literally ate through my plastic, my brand new plastic water bottles that I was all, equipped. Later, I found out it was literally the chief's son's house. So, I learned to adjust my scale of how I judge things. But anyway, the most important thing to know about this place that I was in is that it's in the middle of the village without really much of a wall. So I always had an audience. 20 kids sitting around watching me do whatever I was doing. And also it had no bathroom. And I remember I was reading Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Amazing, transcendent. I still have this amazing affinity for that book because of this reading there. So just lots of bliss, me sitting there reading, all these kids watching me. But, it was early days in Peace Corps in my deployment. We'd had 3 months training. I'd lost about 60 pounds. But, I was new in the village, adjusting to everything. And I had, of course, runny belly and had to, use the bathroom a lot, sometimes precipitously, and I didn't have one. So people would go to, to the fields or a little past the fields to do their business. And there's not a lot of people, and there is a lot of space, right? There's a couple hundred people in this whole village, and, Mali is huge. It's basically behind our village is almost the start of the Sahara. So, normally not a huge problem. The kids would follow me to see what I was up to. But, I could usually evade them, get out, into the fields a bit, and they, would figure out, what I was going to do or lose interest or whatever, and I would get out alone and do my business. I later learned in Africa that, people have accidents, and the thing is, you just don't. The privacy is that you don't look at the person. The person does what they need to do wherever they need to do what they need to do, and everyone else offers the privacy by looking away. But I didn't know that yet, and I really had to go, and I couldn't get far out. I barely got into the fields out of the village proper, and I just had to drow. And as soon as I did, all the kids scattered. So, yes, and I was in the middle of reading Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. So there you go, funny little anecdote. Okay, next we've got Booktuber Biotag by originally by Jessica's library card, and I got it from CG Books. It says, what videos on my channel am I most proud of? All right, well, let's have a look-see. Here are just a few of the readings that I've offered that I can give you an example of what I was talking about before. So with Con Man by Melville, I take a look at the devil, the archetype, right? The devil as a straw man. That's my read on that one. With Ishiguro's Buried Giant, I interpret this one as a fairy tale, but for old people, not for, like my Bullwinkle series. I have a Bullwinkle series where I have, probably a dozen or more fairy tales that I interpret and compare to the crazy Bullwinkle versions. Those are fun. You might want to check those out. But anyway, for this one, early in the year, I did that reading of a fairy tale for old people. Very interesting. Really reverses a lot of things. So André Gide wrote The Vatican Vault. So there's sort of supposed mystery of a gratuite act or a unmotivated murder, sort of like, l'étranger. And I looked at this one as, I looked at the counterfeit character. Counterfeit characters. Counterfeiting is a big theme for André Gide. For Ambrose Bierce, wrote the Devil's Dictionary. I rewrote one of his fables using the definitions from the Devil's Dictionary in place of the various parts of the fable. Very fun, I think, that one. This one got a fair amount of viewing. Was after the Thai earthquake, Myanmar earthquake. I did one on Candide and the importance of the Lisbon earthquake in the thought of the philosophes of the Lumiere in France, and how that influenced Voltaire's Candide. I've got a work called The Pickle for the Knowing Ones that I examined the author of Lord Dexter where do I even begin to tell you about this character? Um, that one's hilarious. Yeah, you'll just have to check it out. That one's very much about the author, Lord Dexter. For example, people complained about his lack of punctuation in his book, so he printed the next version with all the punctuation, all the periods, commas, etc., at the end of the book, all in just 5 pages of punctuation. All right. Dostoevsky's Gambler. I have a look at the grandma character, fabulous grandma character in that. For Korbjiti, a Thai work called Judgment, I look at the function of the monk and layperson, Panchasila, the 5 moral precepts. Camus' Fall, I looked at his epigrammatic style. This is an interesting one. I did less nonfiction than I thought, or that is to say, most of my nonfiction is literary criticism. So besides that, if I accepting that, then I don't have as much nonfiction as I thought. I did stuff on generations, some history, but not as much as I would have thought. But I did one I'm proud of, where I looked at Dan Ariely's Truth About Dishonesty, and I think I found his confession in that book. You may know that there's a big scandal. He was found to have falsified a bunch of his data. He and a couple other honesty experts, these sort of psychologists, sociologists. So I think I found him confessing in his prior book, Truth About Dishonesty, in my reading of that. Okay, in Jacob's Room by Virginia Woolf, I looked at the negative space. I looked at Farewell to Arms, Hemingway's Farewell to Arms, as a sort of forensically, as a sort of suicide letter, but of course way before the act, because I think the key is in his early formation there in the war, where he drove ambulance. Then I looked at Anguish puns in S.J. Perelman's humor works. I looked at Dharma and Dialect in Jack Kerouac's works. I looked at the Avenir Gestionnaire in René Peel's Imprecateur. So this is the corporatist future that I learned about in my History of the Future course back in college. And there's another interesting work in that vein called The Cave by Jose Saramago. And that one is in my pastiche series, where I take a work of art and recreate a little scene, not recreate, but imagine a scene for it, using its characters, its tone and style, and everything about it that I could convey in a short little scene. Got a bunch of those. Got probably 20 of those for you if you're interested in those kinds of things, including tons of plays. I think I know a couple other people who've got a certain amount of plays on their channel, but there's not many of us, and I think I'm up there with having as many as anybody, perhaps on Booktube. So try to give plays it's fair due. I end up doing tons of poetry because of Poetry Thursday. So you've got a really good range of different works. Here I'm just telling you about mainly novels. So for AQ by Lu Xun, I looked at the title. In Bulawayo's We Need New Names, I look at name calling. I look at the soundscape in the neat little house of the Girls of Slender Means by Muriel Spark. I looked at the federating states of Mali and Senegal at the time of the railroad strike and how that influences this whole idea of God's Bits of Wood by Ousmane Sembène. And then I have also a bunch of works from the various group reads that I did, where I try to contribute a little bit to the group, where I did Oblomov, Berryman, Baron Baga, Arabian Nights, Go Down Moses. So hopefully those are interesting in conversation with the other YouTubers who made videos about those. Then I've got, as I said, the pastiches, the poetry, got some graphic novels, got reviews of some humor books, including Dilbert. I've got games on various games. We've got a titles game, funny titles. Cooking with Pooh is one of the Thai books in that video. And I've got some humor videos as well. So 7, the other question on there, number 7, the numbers mean nothing. Is there anything I wish that was different about Booktube? Sure, there's a lot. But as I said, I think I'll limit it here to just saying I wish we had more of an exchange of ideas in the comments. All right, so next to last, or maybe this is the last one actually, is the evolution of a booktuber. This one originated at Spread Book Joy, and I found it with Sandy Says Read. And the prompts are: extinction are the things you used to do on your channel you no longer do. Yeah, I tried in the beginning to create this sort of idea I called Talk Swap, where a bunch of people would be making videos in conversation with each other about the same work which we had all read. And that would create a sort of nexus of videos that hopefully would have a bulk that the algorithm could recognize and direct people to any one of us in that network of discussion of that work who was interested in that book would reach one of us booktubers talking about it, and then would be connected to all the other booktubers commenting on it. I didn't really push it because it would have needed one of the big booktubers to get excited about it, which didn't happen. So I stopped that. Adaptation: what have you done on your channel as a result of Booktube you never would have thought you would do? Done way more tags than I ever thought I would. I still have way more reviews than tags, and that is my commitment to myself and my own vision of my channel. But the reason I do so many tags is, there's so many other Booktube rituals that I don't do. Not that I have, anything against most of them, or very slight objections, but just for various reasons, my geographic isolation, my budget, things of that nature. That, except for the group reads that I talked about, really tags is my way of really participating in the community and getting to know other booktubers. And I enjoy them, and people seem to really enjoy them. They have more reads than my reviews, which is okay. It's not how I would prefer it, but yeah. So I don't do hauls, don't do TBRs, DNFs, any of that stuff. So I should do my tags and be a good member of Booktube land. Evolution: how has Booktube changed you, and what do you aspire to do on your channel in the future? I was shocked at a certain point, about halfway in, to realize how little of my humor, which is a big part, or used to be a big part of my personality, was really coming through in my Booktube. So I have tried to up that by having pure humor videos, little skits or little, scenes, by reading more humor books, and by, analyzing the humor in different books, which I'll pretty soon here be looking at. The next book I look at, I'll be looking at the humor in that book. And yeah, just games and lists and finding ways to show more humor in my site. But I think that, I've become more serious, and also of late, towards the end of the year, been flagging a bit in energy and enthusiasm for the Booktube channel, feeling, for me, it was never about a channel or being about me. It really was about the books. But that's not how Booktube is, and you can't constantly swim upstream. And at the same time, I don't want this to be, a pure vanity project. I have to believe that at some point this will find its audience, and I think and I hope that it will. I think it cannot under the current way that the algorithm and things are working, the way everything is to the latest video, There's very little of going back through things and searching through Booktube. But I hope that that will change in the future. And so I'm going to continue putting it out there. Please give what encouragement you can. I do really appreciate it so much. And I do really enjoy it. And I want to get back to that original feeling of what a privilege it is to just be able to talk about books. One of the things I love the most in the world that I had literally no way to talk about for so long. So for that, I will forgive BookTube just almost anything for the chance that provides all of us. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this mashup. Hope you've been enjoying these mashup tags. Let me know if you have some kind of moral quandary with them. I can't think of any, but I don't know. Just keep worrying for no good reason. But hopefully it'll point you to some of the old channels, some of the old tags that they've done, and they're pretty neat to look back on, as well as if anyone wants to do them in their current mishmashed form that I've put them. Of course, all the prompts and everything will be down in the show notes. Cheerio.